Is it now a sin, a grave sin, to oppose illegal immigration from the third world? Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, a lot to talk about today, believe me. But what is now starting to happen in front of our eyes is one of the most bizarre alliances I have ever seen in my entire life. And that is the alliance between the Vatican and the radical left. What you're now witnessing is an alliance of globalists. One from a Catholic or Christian perspective, and another one from a very radical, left-wing, secular perspective. But they are now teaming up for this election. And here is exactly now what is taking place. Here in Massachusetts, as you know, Hold It Healy, Governor Maura Healey, to me, a borderline Marxist. She is a radical proponent of open borders and globalism, has invited now countless so-called migrants, illegal aliens and invaders to pour into the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we have now had, over the last couple of years, as has been well documented on this show, and of course in other media outlets, wave after wave after wave of illegals, to the point now that it is literally straining the social services of Massachusetts, other states all over the country, no question. And now it is causing a massive impact on the budget. So yesterday, finally, someone at the Mass GOP decided to do something. And the Mass GOP, those lazy, corrupt, inept, ineffective rhinos, seeing a potential opportunity in the election, finally realized, why don't we make an issue of this onslaught of illegal immigration and borders, the wide open border? So they sent out a public statement and a FOIA request. And according now to the Mass GOP, listen to this, all of you, you need to hear this. They are now demanding that the Healey regime, Healey Driscoll administration, reveal where the accounting is for $1 billion, that's with a B, that is now completely shrouded in secrecy regarding spending on illegals and the so-called migrants in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That apparently now there is $1 billion, $1 billion taxpayer dollars, that has now been spent just on sheltering the illegals. This is just for shelter. Hotels, motels, emergency shelters, holiday inns, comfort inns, days inns, wherever they're staying, all across the state, the money is unaccounted for. Who is getting rich off of this money? Healey will not tell us. Who are the vendors that are being paid to place these migrants and house these migrants? And how much profit are they making? Are they connected to Healey? Are they Democrat hacks? Is there massive corruption at play? All of this is now being kept hidden and deliberately suppressed. And so, finally, the Massachusetts Republican Party is demanding that their FOIA request and that of other media outlets be respected, to have open transparency and accountability in government. It's our money. It's your money. It's $1 billion, which in Massachusetts is a lot. Believe me, that pays for a lot of roads, a lot of bridges, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of schools, a lot of tunnels. $1 billion can do a lot of good in Massachusetts, especially if you're looking to drive into work or get around the city or the greater Boston area. Okay? But let that go. Healey is not going to reveal the information. And the reason why she's not going to reveal the information is because this is just the tip of the iceberg. As the Center for Immigration Studies pointed out in their own report, that came out in July, which I mentioned when I moderated the debate among the three Republican candidates to be the nominee for the U.S. Senate to face off against Elizabeth Warren. We had that debate a couple weeks ago. John Deaton, Ian Kane, Bob Antonellis. I pointed out Center for Immigration Studies now says that there are so many illegals, the so-called migrants, that have now poured into Massachusetts, and all of the freebies that have been given to them, all of them, whether it's $64 a day in free meals, over $250 for a family of four, whether it's debit cards with $2,000 put on them, taxpayer money, $2,000 debit cards, they can spend money on whatever they want, whether it's free housing, free education, free health care. I can run down the whole line. It is now going to cost another $1.8 billion on the taxpayers of Massachusetts in the next 2 years alone. As Jessica Vaughn, the primary author of the report, said, this is now a fiscal time bomb for Massachusetts. Billions and billions and billions of dollars have now already either been spent or allocated in order to sustain and take care of these illegals, whereby everything is given to them for free at the massive expense of taxpayers. And what it's doing is it's now going to force the government to continue to raise taxes. Property taxes are going to go up. All kinds of other taxes are going to have to continue to go up because we're now going to have a permanent budget shortfall and deficit year after year after year after year. And they don't even want to tell us how they're spending the money, where they're spending the money, who's getting a cut off of this money. None of it. It is all done in secrecy. It is all done in darkness. And on top of all of that, as the Mass GOP letter points out, and I think this is very much on the low side, very generous on their part, they say there are 600 incidents reports involving police, firefighters, EMT, they say that have not been known or told to the public. Incidents at motels and hotels that are housing these migrants. We learned of one of them in which an illegal alien raped and sexually molested an underage girl. We've learned of other cases of migrants sexually assaulting women, drugs, drug gangs, murders, carjackings. All of this now, the Healy administration is deliberately keeping under wraps, not to let the public know the real cost in crime and in public safety because of her decision and the Biden-Harris regime's decision to open the floodgates and let illegals pour into the country and into our state. A while back, Holden Healy, along with Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, who has turned Boston into a sanctuary city. Healy, who has turned Massachusetts into a sanctuary state, visited the Vatican. And they were warmly received in the Vatican. As have, by the way, numerous other radical left Democrats across the entire country. Pelosi is another example. I could go on and on. And the reason why is because the current Pope, I call him the Red Pope, Pope Francis, is an avowed champion of open borders globalism and of unrestricted, unfettered, unlimited illegal immigration from the entire third world into the West. Well, he recently issued this statement, and I want all of you to hear it. According now to Pope Francis, this is now the position of his Vatican. And I know he's always been a champion of illegal immigration. But listen now to this. This is at a different level. According to him, any political leader, any political party, any political movement that seeks to repel, quote unquote, migrants and prevent them from coming into their country is engaging in nothing less than, quote unquote, grave sin. That according to him, God is with the migrants. God prays with the migrants. God loves the migrants. God is with the migrants. And so, as he put it, there are those who work systematically and with every means possible to repel migrants. To repel migrants. He said it twice. And this, when done with awareness and responsibility, is a grave sin. And so he says that it is cruel, it is uncharitable, it is unchristian, that every country in the world, and he's really talking about the United States in particular, should open its borders and allow as many migrants to come in to feed them, house them, shelter them, and care for them. My friends, more next. 6:19, actually almost 6:20 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, huge story. It has gone national again, viral. We're like, honestly, Massachusetts, or as I like to call it, the People's Republic of Massachusetts. We're really becoming the California of the East Coast. California makes news nationally because everybody's always trying to out moonbat one another. Same thing here. It's more extreme, more radical, more destructive, more left-wing. And now it's almost like an arms race between us and California. Who's going to be crazier? So we always seem to, they match us, then we match them, then they have to raise, then we have to match them again, and back and forth it goes. So here is now the absolute latest. The Massachusetts Republican Party finally, they're doing something. It's not much, but at least it's something. Have sent out a FOIA request and issued a press release and a statement yesterday saying that under the governorship of Holdit Mora Healy, the Healy regime has deliberately now shrouded in complete secrecy $1 billion in payments to shelters, hotels, motels, housing for all of the illegals that Healy has invited into the state. According now to official Massachusetts government statistics, I believe the number is much higher, but they say there are over 350,000 illegals in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I believe it's much higher than that, but let's just stick with the 355,000 number. That is a big number. When taxpayers are being asked to pay for all of them and pay for their hotels and motels and for $64 a day per illegal in food, all expenses, clothes, iPads, iPhones, debit cards, schooling, free education, free health care. I mean, it is crippling the state's budget. And apparently now there's going to be another $1.8 billion that the state is going to have to spend on housing just in the next 2 years alone. And so far, $1 billion, they have no idea how they've accounted for this money. And Healy refuses to give out any details whatsoever. Where is the money going? Who is taking advantage of this money? What vendors are being given these lucrative no-bid contracts, by the way? There's no bidding. There's no competitive bidding on who can give the best service at the best price. No. So this is our money being squandered, stolen, siphoned off. God knows what's being done. And by the way, there's no money for potholes. There's no money for schools. There's no money for hospitals. There's no money for extra police. There's no money for basic social services, and they're going to have to raise taxes. My property taxes have gone up substantially. Yours will as well. They have to pay for all of this. So they have to keep raising and raising our taxes as they keep spending and spending more and more of our money. Now, on top of all of this, and I'm telling you, this is direct election interference. This is not an accident. The Pope yesterday, and as I said in my monologue, he met with Healy, he met with Michelle Wu, he has met with many leading radical open borders Democrats. He now has come out with, to me, an unbelievable statement that if you oppose open borders and unlimited illegal immigration, it is, quote unquote, a grave sin. A grave sin. And so here is what he said, quote, and this was a statement issued to the flock, to the Catholic faithful, and to the world. Brothers and sisters, we can all agree on one thing. Migrants should not be in those seas and in those lethal deserts. But it is not through more restrictive laws. It is not with the militarization of borders. It is not with the rejection that we will obtain this result. Instead, we will obtain it by extending safe and legal access routes for migrants, providing refuge for those who flee from war, violence, persecution, various disasters, and we will obtain it by promoting in every way, here it comes, a global governance of migration based on justice, fraternity, and solidarity. In other words, let's have a new world order, a globalist system in which national sovereignty no longer exists, in which borders essentially no longer exist, and so that people from all over the third world can flow into Europe, can flow into North America, can go wherever they want to go. And that if you oppose this, and notice when he says militarize the border, restrict migration, he's really talking about Donald Trump. This is aimed directly at the election here. And what he's telling Catholics and Christians is, yeah, you may not like Kamala Harris on abortion, but let me tell you what is, in his view now, just as grave a sin. You vote for Donald Trump. You're voting against God. You're voting against the migrants. You're voting against these poor people who are trying to flee all this poverty and disease and civil war and persecution and all kinds of disasters. And so open borders is now the same as abortion. This is what the Pope is trying to tell people. And he now wants to give Catholics and Christians a green light to appease their conscience. It doesn't matter how radical the Democrats are on abortion. Because they want to let in migrants from all over the world, you can go ahead and vote for them with my blessing. 631 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. I want to be very fair to the Pope and to the Vatican. So I don't want to be accused by anyone of misrepresenting his position. And the reason why this is very important is because it's going to impact the election. It's going to impact how many Catholics and Christians vote in November. It's also going to have a huge impact here in Massachusetts. So it's a global story. It's a national story. It's a local story. It's an everything story. So here is what the Pope explicitly stated yesterday. And again, I want to stress, this wasn't just, an off-the-cuff remark. This was a prepared statement that he wanted to issue with the full authority of the Vatican and of his office, the papacy, to Catholics all across Europe, especially here in the United States and around the world. And so here is what he said, quote, it must be said clearly, there are those who work systematically and by any means to turn away migrants. To turn away migrants. He said it twice. And this, when done with conscience and responsibility, is a grave sin. And he went on to say, God shares the drama of migrants. I'm quoting directly now. God is with them and with migrants. He suffers with them, with the migrants. He weeps and hopes with them, with the migrants. And he says that the Lord is with our migrants and not with those who turn them away. So, look, let me just unpackage this very quickly, and then I want to go to the phone lines. What he's clearly saying, this is now a direct intervention and interference in our election. Here is what he's saying. Vote Kamala Harris. He's saying vote Kamala Harris on the issue of the borders and illegal immigration. That to turn away an illegal, to be opposed to an open, unsecure border, according to the Pope, is now a grave sin. And when he says if you do this with conscience and responsibility, he means Donald Trump. He means J.D. Vance. He means the Republican Party now under Trump. He means me. That's what he's really, people like me, because I'm a Catholic. So what he's saying is, God is no longer with me. God is not with Trump. God is not with J.D. Vance. That what we are doing is a grave, grave sin. And he said abortion is a grave sin. So what he's saying is that the issue of abortion, which as you know is part of the Catholic catechism, immigration is not. Abortion is part of fundamental Catholic social teaching. Okay, it's part of fundamental Catholic doctrine. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm just explaining to you the faith. He's now elevating unlimited immigration, open borders, illegals, to the same level and status as abortion. And what he's now really saying is, wink, wink, you can vote for the most pro-choice, pro-abortion candidate, i.e. Kamala, in the history of the United States. Because she wants legalized abortion all the way up until birth. And that includes partial birth abortion, late-term abortion. I'm talking, the baby's coming out of the mother. It's a healthy, beautiful baby. You can still kill it, according to Kamala Harris, and it should be legal. The Pope is now saying, vote for Kamala. That it is a sin to oppose illegal immigration and to demand a secure border. Now, let me just make a couple of comments, and then and by the way, what he's also saying is that Maura Healey is doing, because he met with Maura Healey, that when Maura Healey is spending billions and billions and billions, as we're now finding out, and is hiding the money, it's shrouded in secrecy, to house and shelter and feed and clothe and provide free health care and education, and by the way, $2,000 debit cards to all of these illegals. That's okay. She's with God. I'm not. If you can believe it. I go to church every Sunday. I'm a devout Catholic. She can be pro-abortion. She can be pro-transgenderism. She can be anti-family. I can run down the whole list. It doesn't matter. She's more with God, according now to the Pope, than I am. This is incredible. Let me just make a few points, and I want to throw it open to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. It really pains me to have to say this. I never in my wildest dreams thought this would be coming out of my mouth. A cradle Catholic like myself, whose parents fled Catholic Croatia under communism. My parents, my grandparents, I don't want to give you the Kuhner family history, but the Kuhners went to Croatia to fight radical Islam under the Ottoman Turkish Empire, the invading Turks, to defend the Catholic Church and Europe over 500 years ago. That's my family's history. When I say we are Catholic to the core, we go back centuries and centuries and centuries. Catholicism and the Kuhner name and the Kuhner family are inextricably interlinked. You hypocrite, you. With all due respect, you phony, you fraud, you. You who sits in the Vatican with armed border guards, with 40 feet high walls. The Vatican has walls all around it. Armed guards protecting the Vatican. Do you know that not one illegal alien is allowed to enter the Vatican? Why don't you take 500,000? Why don't you take 1 million? No. No. The Vatican, it could sit behind its high walls. It could have its secure borders. It could militarize its borders with armed guards and armed security. It could defend its national sovereignty and protect you and protect everyone else in the Vatican administration. Then that's okay. But if other countries want to do it, say Italy, oh, no, then that's no good. That's verboten now, huh? Or in the United States. No. You can have secure walls and secure borders. We can't. So, number one, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. Set an example. Let the illegals pour into the Vatican. Tear down those walls. Take away all of the armed guards and security. And then we'll talk. But you won't. Because you're not stupid. Because you can see, I'm just using Italy as an example because the Vatican is in Rome. The crime wave unleashed by the migrants pouring into Italy. It's one of the reasons why Giorgia Meloni, the prime minister, was swept into power. To start securing Italy's borders and stop this massive invasion. So, you phony, you fraud, you don't want the drugs coming in. You don't want the human traffickers coming in. You don't want the murderers and rapists coming in. You don't want to be overwhelmed, having to take care and feed and clothe, because that'll bankrupt the Vatican. But you see, that's okay for you. It's not okay for us. Now, let me get to the second point. Did it ever occur to you that there are other people besides migrants in this world? What about the communities that are affected by migrants? What about us? What are we, chopped liver? What are we? We're not children of God anymore? Our lives don't matter? Lakin Riley's life doesn't matter? And all the other poor victims? Matthew Denise doesn't matter? So what? We're just supposed to allow these people to pour into our country and murder and rape and loot and plunder and steal and destroy our communities with fentanyl and drugs and lay waste to our entire country? And we're supposed to stand by and what? Do nothing? And say, oh, well, God is with them as they maraud, as they stand there and people die of drug overdoses and crime after crime after crime after crime. So we don't have the right to defend ourselves now? Suicide is a sin. It's a mortal sin if you're a Catholic. Okay? I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just telling you according to the teaching. The Pope is now okay with national suicide? That's what you're okay with now? And let me say one last thing, because I want to go to the phone lines. But I'm going to get to this later in the show. I'm going to give you more direct quotes. African Catholic bishops and cardinals are denouncing the Pope. They're saying, what do you think this is having an impact on Africa? You think it's good to keep encouraging people from Africa and Latin America to leave their countries and go to Europe? Which, by the way, the African cardinals are complaining because everything is free. You're leading to a brain drain. The youth are fleeing their countries. This is now making African countries and Latin American countries so impoverished. They go, you're destroying the third world by urging people to leave their countries. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. Okay, lines are jammed. Text line is burning up. 70470-470, 70470-70470. If you want to text the Kuhner man. Okay, this is from 602. Jeff, most people with common sense know that the illegal immigration problem is a massive problem. For the Pope to now come out and condone it is just plain wrong. He has been co-opted politically. This is not the job of the Pope. Bingo. It's time for Francis to mind his own business. It's time for the Red Pope to mind his own business, because he's clearly now interfering in our election. And many of you are making that very same point. This is 617. Jeff, I disagree with you. The Pope is not just saying vote Kamala Harris. He's actually saying vote Democrat. Bingo. Bingo. This is from 514 up in Montreal. Jeff, this is a further effort to demonize Donald Trump and anyone on the right who opposes illegal immigration. Conservatives and Trump supporters are being painted as heartless, not compassionate. They're being painted as haters. Meanwhile, the Pope lives in the most exclusive gated city in the world. Yeah, that's my point. Talk about a hypocrite. Okay, one more and then I'm going to go, two more, and I want to go right back to the phone lines. This is from 508. Jeff, isn't the Red Pope committing the same sin? He is so quick to level against those who want a secure border. I see no migrant shelters in the Vatican. I see no welcome centers inside the gold-lined halls and chambers. What I see are impregnable walls guarded by guns. Lots of guns. Very true. Very, very, very true. But he's saying, God forbid, we should militarize and secure our border. Oh, that's a grave sin. God is against us. So I guess they're against you too, huh, Francis? I'm just saying, by your logic. Okay, one more, and this is from a friend who is a very devout Catholic and up in Canada, and she wanted me to make this point, and I agree with her. Jeff, under this Pope, Freemasonry has infiltrated the Vatican. Freemasons, globalists, radical leftists, whatever term you want to use, there's no question now. This is direct election interference. And the Pope now is siding with Klaus Schwab and George Soros and Kamala Harris and Maura Healey and Joe Biden. He is now siding with open borders globalism against the United States, against the nations of Europe, and against national sovereignty itself. It's time for the Pope to mind his own business. Agree, disagree, and let me ask all of you really now the ultimate question. Is being opposed to illegal immigration and wanting a secure border, is it a quote-unquote grave sin? Will Trump go to hell? Will we go to hell? Because we believe in a border and in national sovereignty. This is now the debate. You know where I stand. I want to know where you stand. John in Groveland. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, John?
Good, good. Jeff, I believe what we are witnessing is a coordinated global phenomenon of the mass illegal immigration all across Europe, America, Canada at the same time. And there's a hidden agenda that ties into the Great Reset here. You talked yesterday about the crazy bill California passed about the 0 points for the mortgage, $150 subsidized.
150,000, yeah, 150,000, 0% interest, zero down payment. That's what the illegals are going to get first-time home buying in California.
They have lavish benefits. Same in England, and I think they're doing it on purpose to enrage the native population as they raise our taxes to pay for these lavish welfare benefits. And it ties into another thing that you spoke of yesterday, censorship. Last week, Tim Waltz, there was a video of him going around saying free speech is not absolute. Hate speech and misinformation need to be censored. And I think that what they're doing in England right now, they're jailing the native population for speaking out about illegals murdering and raping the native population. They're throwing people in jail. And they're going to do this here, Jeff. They're slowly going to do it here. You spoke about the lady who was removed from the town meeting for exercising her First Amendment rights. And it's slowly creeping in here. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And in every state, they're hiding the crimes of immigrants, especially here. And I don't know if you're on X. I believe you are. But yesterday on X, there was a closed caption video and a story about armed Venezuelan gangs in Colorado that have taken over an entire apartment complex, all captured on video surveillance. Why isn't this on the news, Jeff? Because the local government is hiding it from the populace. And Jeff, there's a bigger picture here. It's not just kumbaya. Let's let the poor people into this country, give them a better life. Jeff, they're trying to wipe out nativism, pride of country, and borders for a one world order, one government. And by censoring people, it's like a two-pronged attack. They'll be able to do this. You speak out against illegal immigration and your taxes going up, that's hate speech. You're going to go to jail. We have to stand up against this. It's absolutely disgusting. And for the Pope to come out and speak saying that it's a sin, wasn't it a sin for the Vatican to protect pedophile priests for decades and decades?
John, you're on fire. I'm telling you, you're absolutely on fire. Look, the only thing I would just add is to, I think, just a brilliant call, is I would say it's more than disgusting. It's diabolical. It really is. It's satanic. And I'm choosing those two words deliberately because in context of, Christianity and religion and the Vatican and the Pope, this is the New World Order. And you're right. It's coordinated. It's deliberate. This is not accidental. And there are very powerful vested interests now. And the Pope said it in his statement. He wants, quote, global governance. I mean, I can read to you the statement again. That will ensure justice, solidarity, fraternity. But he says in particular regarding migrants, we have to have a globalist system through the United Nations or through whatever, through the World Economic Forum, that they will allow unlimited migrants, illegal aliens, to invade and pour into every country of the West. So there's no question this is now deliberate. It's right in front of our eyes. Now, it's communism. It's really a form of communism, international communism. For communism to be implemented, because you talked about they want to wipe away patriotism. You're right. A sense of community. They're right. Ultimately, communism is against human nature. It's against God. It's against family. It's against patriotism. It's against love of country. It's against love of community. So it's against parental authority. It's against the family, as I said. So you have to impose censorship if you want to impose communism. Because people will naturally rebel, revolt, and speak out. Because it's against human nature. It's unnatural. That's why every time communism is tried, they have to impose repression, a police state, and censorship. It all goes together. You can never, no one ever votes for communism. In the end, they go, no, it's antithetical to who we are, what we want. It's antithetical to human nature. So people eventually will realize, no, why would I vote for this? This is insane. So to impose it, they have to censor opposition. And look, this is it. This is Obama's fourth term. Now, I've never seen the Pope. He's been around for a while now, Pope Francis. this publicly, this explicitly, this blatantly. He's not just calling it a sin. Look, I mean, you may think, well, grave sin is just, no, grave sin and sin are two different things. What he's saying is it's not a venial sin. It's a mortal sin. It's the most serious sin you can commit. So what he's saying is if you vote for Donald Trump, you're committing now a mortal sin. And for Catholics, if you don't get that absolved, I'm just explaining to you the doctrine, if that's not forgiven, if you don't go to confession and repent, you go to hell. It's a mortal sin. It's a serious sin. It's not a sin of the flesh. It's not a venial sin, which is more of a minor sin. This is a grave sin. As he put it, God is not with you. You've spit in the face of God. So what he's telling Catholics in America, vote Democrat, vote Kamala. I mean, this is beyond disgusting. It's direct election interference. It's none of his business. He's directly interfering in an election, and he's completely perverting Catholic teaching and the doctrine. Here, look, just common sense. Let's leave aside the Vatican, okay, the hypocrisy of the Vatican, which is the most guarded, gated city-state in the world. By the way, 40 feet walls. Literally, I've been there. 40 feet walls. Okay? I've seen pictures of the Vatican. 40 feet walls. What's heaven? I mean, to show you how theologically ridiculous, how corrupt this argument is, how flawed, almost how diabolical, how evil this argument is. What is heaven? I wrote a piece on this once in a while against Pope Francis years ago. Heaven is pearly gates. Heaven has a wall. Heaven has borders. It doesn't just let anybody in. You think God lets a mass murderer in? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Hey, you killed babies? No problem. Come on in. Eternal happiness. Go ahead. Rest in peace. No. Christian teaching, Christian doctrine, the Bible, whatever, is crystal clear. I'm not saying whether you're a believer or not. I'm just explaining to you what the Christian faith is. Some go to heaven, some go to hell. Some go to purgatory, and God willing, they make it to heaven. But the point is, some go to heaven, and many don't. They don't just let anybody in. They don't just say, oh, hey, I had a rough life. Let me in. Oh, hey, I'm a third worlder. Let me in. No. Heaven has walls. Heaven has borders. Heaven has gates. Heaven decides who's worthy and who's not, who's acceptable, who's not. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. And think about what he's really saying. Okay, let's leave aside the theological question for a second. What he's saying is, if you don't have chaos and lawlessness, if you actually have the rule of law and a regulated immigration system, which places caps and limits on how many people can come in, then you're against God? So what he's basically saying is, what, we have to have anarchy? No laws? Just chaos? And communities can't defend themselves? In other words, this is what he's saying. He's saying is, squatters have every right to pour into my home. That if someone knocks on my door and I say, I'm sorry, I don't want to let you in, then I'm the sinner. Not the guy that's breaking in. Not the one that's stealing. Not the one that's squatting in my home. Because that's what migrants are. They're squatters. They come in, take your country. I don't care. America, Canada, Italy, Germany, France, Britain. Take your pick. They come in uninvited. They walk on in and they want everything for free. And in fact, I'm going to read to you a statement later in the show from a very influential Nigerian cardinal. Okay, he's a brilliant man. I wanted him to be the first black pope. Many of us wanted him to be the pope, not Francis. And I said, it's time for a black pope because there are so many Catholics now in Africa and the continent of Africa. I said, no, I think it's their moment and he's the best person for the job. He came out with a statement saying, do you know what the Pope is doing to places like Nigeria? You're depopulating our countries. Our youth, middle-class youth, educated youth, professional youth are fleeing Nigeria and other African countries to go to Europe. Because when they get there, they call back and they tell their friends, everything here is free. I'm giving you verbatim what the Cardinal said. He goes, everything's free. You got to come, man. It's all free. What do you mean it's all free? It's all free. The apartments are free. The food is free. The clothes are free. The computers, healthcare, school. It's all free, man. Come on down. And so rather than staying in Nigeria and building that country up because that's their future, he says you're destroying Africa by encouraging them to all go to the West and live on welfare. And by the way, the cardinals in Africa are all denouncing this. They're saying that of 100 migrants, listen to this, 100 migrants that come into Europe or the United States, only 4 out of 100 are genuine refugees. They go 96%. They're economic migrants. They're just there for a better life. He goes, so what the hell is the Pope? The Pope doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's killing Africa and Latin America. Because it's a brain drain. Their best and their young are leaving. And it's destroying Europe and North America. So everybody's getting screwed. We're getting screwed. They're getting screwed. But you know who keeps getting richer and richer? You guessed it. The globalists. And that's what it's all about. Money, power, and control. Thank you for that call, John. Great call. John in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. That guy, John from, he really put the...
he put it all together.
Oh, what a smart man he is. But Jeff, all I wanted to say, I wanted to say a lot of that, but the Catholic Church, there's a thing called the separation of church and state. So he has the right to his opinion, but he doesn't have the right to preach it to the world. The Catholic Church is they don't pay taxes. They don't, they get a lot of benefits, and they're not supposed to be, out working for the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. And like you said, Jeff, and John said, the Vatican's got walls, armed guards, and, it's the hypocrisy of this whole thing is ridiculous. But the problem with it is, Jeff, the devoted Catholics, like my mother, who's in her 90s, I know she's going to vote for Trump, but they'll listen to that. My mother won't, but they'll listen to that, and they're going to just vote because they believe that they should do what the Pope says. A real devoted Catholic, Jeff, the older ones, they're going to do what that guy says. And one other thing I wanted to say, Jeff, is that the economy in the state of Massachusetts is about to crash, Jeff. I'm a trucker. I work for myself, but I know a lot of people, union workers, and massive amounts of them in the last month have gotten their pink slips and have been laid off. I don't know where they think they're going to get the money to pay for all this nonsense, but they're not going to be getting any more money from me because I'm not going to pay any more money than what I'm already paying right now. And I just don't know where they think they're going to get the money to pay for it, Jeff.
Well, John, look, let me tell you what's going to happen. This state is going to go broke. I mean, that's why that I cited that report from the Center for Immigration Studies, not just to strengthen my argument in my monologue, but it was cited by so many papers, not here. See, the media has a blackout here, but, the Globe and the Herald, those two rags, but in media across the United States and across Europe, they said Massachusetts is going to go broke. Within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to go broke. We're spending so much now on illegals and migrants. It is literally breaking our back financially. It's breaking the budget. So, and then the other thing, John, look, I've been on air now for over 10 years. Okay. As you know, okay, almost 12 years now. I've never seen so many people text me and email me, and they're not blowing off steam. I mean, they're giving me specific locations. They're leaving. I can't tell you how many, I get emails from people, all long-time listeners. Many of them, Jeff, I've been listening to you from the beginning. I'm off to Florida. I'm off to Georgia. I'm off to South Carolina. I'm off to North Carolina. I'm off to Arizona. I'm off to Nevada. Some are saying New Hampshire, but honestly, most of it is down south. Somewhere down south to a red state. Tennessee. Oh, by the way, Tennessee now, with Kuhner country, for some reason, Tennessee, red hot. Red hot. They all want to move to Tennessee. All of you want to move to Tennessee. The point is, and you know, they're like you. They work. They pay taxes. You're net producers when it comes to tax revenue, not net takers. You're the makers, not the takers. So what I'm saying is, it's not just that we're losing people. We're losing talented people. We're losing hardworking people. We're losing taxpayers. We're losing the tax base. And that's the other thing that report says. You keep hemorrhaging, bleeding people who pay taxes, and you keep pouring more migrants in, who all they do is suck on the public teat and live off the fat of the land. You're headed for a fiscal cliff. You're heading for a financial catastrophe. They're running this state into the ground. That's what the Democrats and Healy do. And that's when you have one party rule and a Democrat supermajority, this is what happens when you have this kind of power and corruption. There are no checks, no balances. When you have one party rule, when you don't have two party competition, this is what happens. So, John, welcome to the club, my friend. I bet you're going to be leaving soon, John. And I may be the last one out of here. 7:19, almost 7:20 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. All right, I've got two questions. Two questions for you, Kuhner country, and I'd love to get your take on it. Number one is more of a talk radio question. The Pope, Pope Francis, the Red Pope, as I call him, now has come out in an official statement saying that if you oppose secure borders and illegal immigration, you are engaging in, quote unquote, a grave sin. Not just a sin, but a grave sin. And that you are against God and that God is against you. So, do you believe it is a grave sin to oppose illegal immigration and wide open borders? I'm just curious. You know where I stand, but I want to hear where you stand. And to me, the ultimate question, and this is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Is Pope Francis a communist? I would probably call him a Marxist, whatever, a Latin American, Argentinian Marxist, if you want to get more technical, if you want to be specific, but let's just keep it more general. That's why I call him the Red Pope. But I want to hear from you. Is Pope Francis a communist? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, WRKO.com/Kuhner. You can also vote on X. I'm very active on X. My account there, at the Kuhner Report. It's all one word. At the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. And he now is essentially saying, vote Kamala Harris, vote Democrat in this upcoming election, because they are the champion of unlimited illegal immigration, wide open borders, and amnesty. 617-266-6868. Should the Pope meddle in politics, and especially in American politics? I say mind your own business, but that's me. Vince in Long Island. Thanks for holding, Vince, and welcome.
Jeff, how you doing? This is Vince, originally from Montreal, Long Island.
Vince, how are you, buddy?
Okay, I'm listening to you more live these days. So, I wanted to ask you, did you ever hear a documentary called "A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing"?
No.
It was a documentary on Saul Alinsky and his whole plan. It was a very, very in-depth look at Saul Alinsky, how they tried to infiltrate the church, and I think they succeeded in the 50s with communists and basically perverts, which we see in the church that they call priests, but are actually child molesters. And it's a very good documentary. It explains everything that's going on and makes a lot of sense. And the church has been infiltrated by communists, and the idea is to collapse the church and collapse Western society. And I mean, don't forget, the Pope is just a person. He's not God, just like anybody on the Supreme Court is just a person. So you can have communists everywhere. They infiltrate our whole system. During the Middle Ages, the church was selling a place in heaven. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, they were called indulgences.
We had the whole Protestant movement.
That's right. Yeah, Vince, they were called indulgences. Yeah, they were selling indulgences. Basically,
right. And,
you give us enough money and you got a guaranteed place in heaven.
So corruption is everywhere, wherever you concentrate power. And obviously the Catholic Church has concentrated power. You know, the Founding Fathers knew this, and that's why America was supposed to be unique and exceptional, which, of course, the communists don't think it is. And this is where we are. And I still don't know what happened to the prior Pope, Ratzinger. What was that all about, his resignation? It's beyond me.
Vince, the rumor, it's an open secret. The rumor in Rome, in the Vatican, is that essentially was a putsch by these left-wing cardinals who elected Francis. And the rumor is that they were poisoning him. And they made his health get worse and worse and worse. And they basically pushed him then into retirement. But essentially he was poisoned into retirement. They wanted to get rid of him because, as you know, Benedict was a follower of John Paul II. He was a traditionalist. He was a Catholic. And so he held the line on doctrine, on the faith, on Marxism, globalism. He was not a globalist. Far from it. And the other thing was, behind the scenes, I know this for a fact because I dealt with the Vatican when I was at the Washington Times and the editor of their magazine Insight. Benedict was really going after these child molesting priests, these predatory sexual predator priests, these pedophile priests. He was weeding them out. He was trying to clean house. He was trying to hold people accountable. He was pushing people out of powerful positions. And the empire struck back. And they pushed that poor man out. And he just got sicker and sicker and sicker. And the people close to Pope Benedict, or I guess, what is it, Emeritus? Pope Emeritus Benedict, Emeritus, as they say, sorry, Pope Emeritus Benedict. They believed that he was secretly being poisoned because his health really did plummet. And then when he left the Vatican, his health started to get better. So I think there's no question. And Vince, what we do know, and this has been openly admitted, this is not a conspiracy theory, is that you had key left-wing, basically Marxist cardinals, when they held the papal conclave to elect the Pope, admit that they voted in a block to get Francis elected. Now, to non-Catholics or lapsed Catholics, that may seem like no big deal. It is a mortal sin. It's as close to being illegal as anything can be illegal in the Vatican. You are never supposed to vote in a block for any candidate. You have to be, have the Holy Spirit. You have to discern who's the best person for the job. But what they did was they were like, okay, let's all band together. Let's get Pope Francis, badmouth that candidate, badmouth that candidate. In other words, the Pope was illegally selected. Now you have the whole story, Vince. Take care, Vince, and call again, please. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6160. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can text us 70470, 70470. Okay, this is from Mark on Messenger. And many of you on the text line are making the same point, and those of you emailing the Kuhner Man are making the same point. So we'll let Mark make it for everybody. Jeff, we should ask the Pope, where does it say anywhere in the Ten Commandments or in the Bible that if you're against illegal immigration, it's a sin? I'll wait. Time's up. It doesn't, Jeff. What world are we living in? Because I can't take it anymore. God help us. No, I'm with you, Mark. By the way, where does it say you're right. In the Ten Commandments, in the Bible, but let's keep it just to the Catholic Church. Where does it say in the Catholic Catechism? Where does it say in Catholic doctrine? Where does it say in Catholic social teaching, going back 2,000 years, that it's a sin to oppose secure borders and unlimited immigration? What planet is this Pope living on? He just makes it up as he goes along. 617-266-6868. Ken on Cape Cod. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you? First-time caller.
Welcome, Ken. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, so the Pope and the Catholic Church, they also say pray for the healing of those who struggle with addiction and, the illness of addiction. How can you also welcome those who bring the fentanyl and the drugs here illegally? It's hypocritical, if you ask me.
Completely. Absolutely, completely. I mean, Ken, that's what I mean. That's why, he's taking tremendous blowback for this comment. Look, we're upset, and I'll let you finish your point, Ken. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not cutting you off. But we're upset because he is interfering in our election. There's no question. But he's also interfering in Italy because they've got elections coming up, and he doesn't like the current government there. And you've got the huge issue now with migration and the illegals in Great Britain. And so he's also in other words, he's thinking of Europe and key countries in Europe as well as in the United States. And I got to tell you this, a lot of Italian Catholics are very unhappy today. The Prime Minister of Italy, she goes to church every Sunday. She's a very devout Italian Catholic, Giorgia Meloni. And she came out and wrote him a letter saying, you got to learn to mind your own business. I don't know where you're getting your theology from, but I'm talking to a lot of cardinals and a lot of experts. These are Catholic theologians who are saying, with all due respect to your Holy See, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, you want to push a new world order, then say you're pushing a new world order, but don't use the papacy as just a pretext to push a globalist agenda, because that's what he's doing. There's nothing Catholic about this Pope. He's a Kino. He's a Catholic in name only. Like a rhino is a Republican in name only. He's a Catholic in name only. And I could go on, Ken. Look, because I'm a devout Catholic, so I subscribe to several Catholic magazines and journals, and so I follow this on my spare time, quite closely. He's invited leading atheists to chat with at the Vatican. Population control, climate change, secularists. These are radical environmentalists who push abortion on demand, who push birth control, who push depopulation. He's friends with them. He drinks with them. He eats with them. So he has, and by the way, he has been purging the church, especially the leadership, of traditionalists, Orthodox Catholics, traditional Catholics, conservative Catholics, supporters and followers of John Paul II or Pope Benedict. No, he's a political pope. As I used to call him, he's the Obama of the Catholic Church. He wants to fundamentally transform the church the way Obama is trying to fundamentally transform America. And I believe they have formed a strategic alliance. There's no question. And this statement is aimed at Catholic voters here in the United States. And it was John in Dunstable, I think, who made the point about especially more elderly Catholics. The Pope is, almost gospel. This is going to cause a lot of confusion now. I'm telling you, many priests, I think my priest in my parish, is probably going to go to the pulpit and say, well, the Pope has spoken. You got to vote for Kamala. And many, especially elderly Catholics who are going to vote for Trump, are going to say, well, now I got to vote for Kamala now. I mean, if the Pope says I got to vote for her, I got to vote for her. This is so wrong on so many levels. But he doesn't want Trump back in power. He doesn't want Meloni in power in Italy. He doesn't want Marine Le Pen in power in France. I mean, I could go on. He's got other countries in mind. But the big one is here. And now you think the media is now biased in favor of Kamala. Well, now add the Vatican. Go ahead, Ken. The floor is yours.
Jeff, like you say best, if you repeat something enough times, everybody will believe it and eventually say, oh my God, this is the Pope. This is borderline the Almighty telling me I have to, have this guilt. If I don't vote for Kamala Harris, then I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. And it seems like the Pope has forgotten that we choose to welcome this belief into our lives, not have it forced upon us. And he is forcing it upon us.
Well, he's forcing evil upon us. That's why I say this whole thing is diabolical, because I go back to your original point. You've got cocaine, you've got heroin, you've got fentanyl, you've got hard drugs that are pouring into our country right through our wide open border. And it is killing over 100,000 Americans a year, just in this country. The scourge of addiction. I mean, the deaths, the broken lives, the broken homes, the broken families. Never mind the criminals. Never mind we're talking human slavery. Look, I'm going to get to these African priests and bishops and cardinals. 80%, Ken, I want you to think about this. 80% of the Nigerian women that are now sent into Italy, okay, these so-called migrants, are in prostitution. The lead Nigerian cardinal, the one that I wanted to be Pope, okay, he's a wonderful man, a beautiful man, a really devout Orthodox Catholic, very courageous man, principled man. He would have been the first black Pope. I mean, I really wanted him to be the Pope after Benedict. Said, in Italy, 1 out of every 2 prostitutes in Italy is a Nigerian migrant. He said, this is modern day human slavery. This is literally modern day human slavery. It's human trafficking and human slavery. He said, how can the Pope be in favor of this? This is an immoral abomination. Never mind the murderers and the rapists and the gangs. Here, Ken, look. As I speak to you now, don't take my word for it, okay? In Aurora, Colorado, there is a notorious Venezuelan gang, all illegals. They all came in illegally. They're terrorizing Aurora, Colorado. They literally have occupied, hijacked entire chunks of Aurora, Colorado, including apartment complexes. You see them with their guns, machine guns, long guns, handguns. And they're going up and down. They're terrorizing the residents. The residents are living in fear. You see one poor woman, I think she's got like 10 locks on her door. They murder people. They kidnap people. They're engaged in child trafficking. They're selling children into sexual slavery. They're bringing in drugs, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine. They're laundering money. They're engaging in extortion, out and out murder. And they're saying, we become like Venezuela? We're living in terror in our own apartment complexes. And this is all because the governor of Colorado, along with Harris and Biden, opened up that border and let him in. Is this Christian? Is this Catholic? Is this what Jesus wants? To have gangs, roving gangs with machine guns shooting old ladies in the head and selling crack cocaine to teenagers and taking young 8, 9-year-old girls and selling them into sexual slavery to pedophiles? Like this is what, that's Jesus. God's with them now, huh? He's with the Venezuelan gangbangers. Like he's crazy. So, no, the Pope should be ashamed of himself. And I go back, to the Vatican. You know what? Take down your wall. I'll tell you what, Pope Francis, okay? Holy Father. Take down your wall, get rid of your armed guards, and then we'll talk. In other words, lead by example. Or better yet, cut a check. How about from now on, all donations go to migrants and not to the church? Huh? Why not? 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Just as a quick aside, have you seen the footage out of Aurora, Colorado? I know I mentioned it last segment, but these Venezuelan gangs, these illegal gangs, and you have these residents, they got them, I guess, on their phones or whatever, and they're recording this. It's like out of a movie or something. So it's these like teenage Venezuelans. They look like 17, 18, 19-year-old punks with like masks, and they're holding these, machine guns. One's got an Uzi. And they're just patrolling the stairs of these apartment complexes. They're just going floor to floor to floor. They're banging on doors. They're kicking doors down. They're terrorizing residents. They're extorting them. They're dealing drugs. They apparently now they've raped teenage girls. I mean, they're rampaging. Apparently, they're engaged in human trafficking, child sex slavery, money laundering. And the residents of Aurora, Colorado are absolutely terrorized. The cops apparently are afraid of them. Everybody's afraid of them. But they're going up and down these apartment complexes like they own them. This is, and I'm thinking, and the Pope is saying it's a grave sin to not want to have secure borders and oppose illegal immigration? That God is on the side of the so-called migrants, in other words, these Venezuelans? Holy mackerel. Ay, ay, ay. And apparently Maura Healey, a huge story here locally. It's gone national. Everything here now goes national because it's so outrageous. They're hiding $1 billion shrouded in secrecy, according to the Massachusetts Republican Party. They've asked for a FOIA request. $1 billion in secret has been used for migrant housing, but they really don't know where the money's going, who's getting paid, who's getting rich off of this, which vendors are being used, and how much how much money they're being allocated, where these migrants are being sent across the state. And apparently now Healy's covering up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of all kinds of incidents, altercations, violence, crimes committed by these migrants here in Massachusetts. Police, EMT, firefighters, all these incident reports are being suppressed and buried. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And so crime, according to the Pope, is good. It's all good now. So raping young girls, that's good. Living off other people's money and abusing their generosity, that's good. That's all good now. 617-266-6868 is the number. Mark in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Fine, man. So listen, at this point, I just feel like I'm a cheerleader. But I'm just, if you don't mind, I would just make my points. I'll keep it short and sweet. because I have to make breakfast for my family, practice my faith, and take care of my flock. I could call you Jeff. I could call you Kuhner, Bulldozer. Might as well call you Pope. I think you definitely have the best callers in the business, because not only did they nail it, but you nailed it. And at this point, you should mic drop, be the caller of the week, and take Mike and Sandy out for brunch. So that said, I mean, I have notes. I'm throwing them away left and right. And by the way, I'm not available for questions like Biden, Kamala, and now even the Pope. Very disappointing. This is not about election, and they even bought the Pope now. This is about humanity. I am a devout Catholic, generations of Italian, actually Sicilian. My wife always says, make sure you say Sicilian, Catholics. But, I mean, I'm not a fan of this Pope, and I'm a man of God. But migrants, you nailed it down the line, Jeff. You literally are the call of the week, and you literally should drop the mic and take the day off. Drugs, gangs, guns, abortions, mortal and venial sins. I'm very familiar. This is immortal. This is diabolic. They bought the Pope. Does this guy, and I never thought I'd call the Pope this guy, does he have a mirror? I mean, they bought this guy too. You referenced Howard and Piven, and I have researched, maybe it was you, maybe it was someone else. At the end of the day, this is all planned. Tithing, I pay tithing, I pay for this, I pay for the church. Yes, okay, Aurora, Colorado. You want masks, you want guns, you want to take my daughter, my wife, and now you take my guns away so I can't even protect myself. This is what the Pope wants? Hey, at the end of the day, God gave me the gift of vision, and I see through everything. So I'll close with this. I don't want to have the wrong message of people faltering from the Catholic faith or religion. I think they need more of that because they're looking for division. So do not falter, Kuhner country. Do not falter. Believe in America. Believe in God. Listen to Kuhner. And I'm going to pray for the Pope today. And I never thought I'd say that, but I'm going to pray for the Pope today. I'm dropping the mic. I got to make my kids breakfast.
Thank you.
I love you.
You're a very wonderful man. Mark, you sound like a wonderful man. A great father, a family man, and a Catholic, and an American, obviously. Mark, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Honestly, I think everybody should be praying for the Pope because what he said is so out of bounds. To invoke God the way he did, again, I don't want to return to this point, but when he says grave sin, Mark is a devout Catholic, so he knows what that means. He's saying it's a mortal sin. That means you're going to go to hell. So if you vote for Donald Trump, you're going to go to hell? Or in Italy, that's why so many Italian Catholics are livid today. So all of us that voted for Giorgia Meloni, the current prime minister, conservative, who said, well, I'm going to secure Italy's borders, we're going to stop this massive. And by the way, illegal immigration has been slashed 60% under her leadership. She's basically, Italy's version of America First or MAGA. So she ran explicitly on an anti-illegal immigration, pro-secure border, anti-globalist agenda. So you have many Italian Catholics, millions and millions of them, who voted for Giorgia Meloni. You're saying, so now we're going to go to hell because we voted for Giorgia Meloni? Are you serious? He's making a fool of himself. At a bare minimum, he's making a fool of himself. 617-266-6868. No, look, what is clear to me, just stand back objectively. All of our institutions, and this really goes back to the 1960s, the left, people mention Saul Alinsky, we could mention many prominent names and figures. But really, this has been 60 years in the making. And remember the slogan the left had in the 60s, the long march through the institutions, that the way they would ultimately capture power is to infiltrate every institution. And that included, by the way, the Catholic Church. It includes, by the way, many Protestant churches. It's not just the Catholic Church. They went after many Protestant denominations now have fallen to the left. And they've been working hard on the Catholic Church. They have their man now in Pope Francis. There's no question. But think about it. The schools, they've fallen now to the left. The universities, they've fallen to the left. The media, it's fallen to the left. Television, Hollywood, fallen to the left. You could go on, I could just go on and on and on. The entire entertainment culture, fallen to the left. The European Union, fallen to the left. The entire West now, fallen to the left. You have corporate America now, big business, completely fallen to the left. So they have gone institution after institution after. They're now infiltrating our military. The elite military leadership, all woke leftists. Notice now the disrespect our military is now held in. Secret Service, FBI, CIA, all of our major big institutions and agencies fallen to the left. This is not accidental. It's deliberate. So it's not that I'm singling out the Pope. I'm just because it's such a big story and he's obviously interfering in our election. And obviously the Pope carries a lot of moral weight here in this country and around the world. And it's combined with what these governors are doing here in Mass and all across the country, turning them into sanctuary states and allowing all these illegals to just pour in and then, live on welfare. Everything is paid for by us. But every institution now has been riddled and infiltrated by the left. And that's not an accident. That is coordinated, planned. And so America is infiltrated. The West and Europe is infiltrated. The Catholic Church is infiltrated. Christianity is being infiltrated. By the way, many of my Jewish friends say, Jeff, you wouldn't believe it, but many now Jewish temples, Jewish denominations, very left-wing. Very, very left-wing. So it's happening all over the world. And now people are finally waking up to what's been going on, but waking up is not enough. It's time to speak out and push back. Agree, disagree. Dave in Braintree. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dave.
Morning.
Hi.
Jeff, what really gets me, my retirement, Jeff, is $1,200 a month. Jeff, that's not even my rent. I have to work every day. I'm working 7 days a week. And I'll tell you, getting up at 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, 7 days a week takes a toll on a person. But she's going to give them all kinds of money. Where did the money come from, Jeff? Who's in charge of that money? Did the Catholic Church give Molly Healy the money to put away on the sideline someplace and bury it under a rock someplace? It's like the whole thing is corrupt. It's illegal what she's doing. People like me and you pay taxes into the system all these years, and at the same time, all they want to give me is $1,200 a month.
It's outrageous. Well, and that's the other thing, Dave. This is what I find really despicable, is that they're openly embracing and championing foreigners, strangers, over their own, over poor Americans, homeless veterans, low-income Americans. A lot of Americans now are starving. A lot of Americans now are living hand to mouth. I mean, they're really hurting. They're really hurting. And all we keep hearing about is that the illegals. I'm sorry. It's wrong. It's disgusting. Like what? We don't matter? What? American citizens? What? We don't suffer? What? Our starvation is what? It's not as worthy as someone else's starvation? And, let me tell you this, Dave, and I promise I'm going to come back to you. What I find really disgusting is you have Catholic charities making so much money off of this. the financial self-interest that the church has to have all these illegals and so-called migrants, quote unquote, placed all over the state, all over the country. So they're making money off of this. They're making a profit off of this. And look here, that hotel in Taunton. Okay, there's that hotel in Taunton. It's not open to the public anymore. Only illegals, only migrants, full, absolutely full. They get $64 a day, 3 catered meals, a family of 4, over about $260 a day just in food. A day. Their housing, their shelter is completely paid for. They have maid service. They even have dry cleaning service. They get, on top of that, they get $2,000 debit cards, prepaid Visa cards. Their kids are sent to school free. They're all given health insurance free. In fact, ask the local convenience stores. Say they can't keep up with the demand because it's all of them with these $2,000 Visa cards. They're buying booze. They're buying lottery tickets. They're buying sodas. They're buying soft drinks. They're buying whatever. They're buying up everything. And then I know this for a fact because I got a source there, or at least I had a source there. The police come at least 2 or 3 times a day to that very hotel. There are fights. There are assaults. There are sexual assaults. There's drugs. There's drug dealing going on. They're drinking and partying till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Firefighters have to be called. People are ODing. EMTs have to come. I mean, it's a disaster. Now, Healy doesn't want you to know about that. And so all of these incident reports are being systematically suppressed and covered up. I'm just talking about one hotel. I can imagine what it's like all across the state. Now, every time a police officer goes there, who pays for it? We do. We do. Every meal, we pay for it. Every night they're there, we pay for it. Every maid, every sheet that's cleaned. By the way, and they have laptops, they have iPads, they have cable television. As I said, $2,000 a month spending money. By the way, Uber, Lyft, they're driven around. They're driven to wherever they want to go. They're driven around. We pay for that. They're basically chauffeured. Their kids, buses. You see, in Stoughton, for a while, they didn't have money for the buses for over 150 kids until people like me made such a big stink about it. But for the illegals, 2 buses, no problem. No problem. Now, you tell me, how is that right? Let me ask all of you. When was the last time the government, let's say, like me, we're a family of 4. I'm a wonderful wife, my 2 kids. When did the government ever give me $260 a day in catered meals? Never. Never. When did they ever pay for me one day a hotel at a Holiday Inn with maid service and dry cleaning and the whole bit? Never. When did they ever pay for my cable bill? When did they ever give me a $2,000 debit card every month? Cash money, baby. Spend it around. Here, Jeff, here's free health insurance for a year. I never got that. Hey, Jeff, no. You don't drive to work anymore. We'll drive you to work on our dime. Wow, that would be nice. I blow $100 a week on gas. Just on gas. I'm not talking wear and tear on the car and, the drive-in, the commute, the congestion, the traffic, the way back home, all of that. Those of us that live in Greater Boston, we know what it's like. They get all of it for free. Why is that? What makes them so special? And they don't even say thank you. I'm telling you, they're ingrates. They're absolute ingrates. Because, and I want to read this soon. You got to hear this from the Nigerian cardinal. He goes, they're scamming the Europeans. They're scamming the Americans. He goes, these are young people who should be working in their own home countries, but they can't believe it. They won the lottery because they call back and they go, everything is free. Like these idiots are so stupid. They're giving us everything to us free. So why come? Everybody just come. And then you can do whatever you want. In Italy, they're hitting the strip clubs. They're hitting the cafes. They're hitting the bars. They're going to the soccer games. You know, soccer is big in Italy. They're like, yeah, they don't work. Now, I'm telling you, this is going to go kaput. Like this, look, when you only have so many horses pulling a cart and you keep adding more people to the cart and more to the cart, eventually the horses go kaput. We can't pull anymore. But you're an American. If anyone is going to get preference, it's you, Dave. And especially, this is the one that turns my stomach. You're homeless in our country? We don't have room for you, but we have room for illegals? And you put them up in 5-star hotels? And the double insult is we have homeless veterans? And you should see them? They served in Iraq, they served in Afghanistan, they served in Vietnam. Many of them did multiple tours. They come back with PTSD, or they come back with all kinds of issues because they've been involved in war after war after war after war. And instead of helping them and helping them transition, we throw them on the streets like a bunch of dogs. And this Pope is telling me that God is against me because I want to help the homeless in my country? I want to help the poor in my country? And I don't want to have young, middle class or working class people from other countries who come here and take advantage of our generosity. You know, they used to be called sponges. They used to be called mooches. They used to be called deadbeats. I still am old enough to remember. I know this is going to shock many of you. It used to be a shame if you're an able-bodied person. I'm not saying if you're disabled or have a disability. That's something else. That's, by the grace of God, there go I. But, I remember my father see a young, healthy 25-year-old man or a 27-year-old woman, and they're just sitting around in an apartment collecting welfare. You call him a bum, a parasite, a leech. He would always say to me, whatever you do, son, I never want you to become that. That would be the greatest shame and dishonor you could ever bring upon our family. He said the same thing to my sister. Now, it's a way of life, man. And these migrants, they come and they laugh in our face. So if I'm against somebody leeching off the system and exploiting and taking advantage of our generosity, somehow God is against me? It's sick. Dave, I'm telling you, it's sick. Dave, do me a favor. Hang on. I'm up against a hard break. I want to come back to Dave, and I want to ask Dave, really, to me, the ultimate question. Okay? The $64,000 question. I want to ask all of you this question. Is it a grave sin? A mortal sin, according to the Pope now, to oppose secure borders, illegal immigration, and bums living on welfare? 819 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, we lost Dave. Anyway, sorry that happened, Dave. But anyway, let me ask all of you. It is now the question of the hour. Pope Francis has now directly intervened in the American election. He issued a statement straight from the Vatican, from the seat of the papacy itself, saying that to oppose illegal immigration, to want a secure border, is a grave sin, according to him, a direct sin against God, and that God is not with you. And that he is now urging everyone, he didn't say this explicitly, but it's pretty much implied, to vote for candidates that support open borders and unlimited immigration. My question to you, A, should the Pope be getting involved in American politics? I say mind your own business. And B, is it a sin? Is it a sin to believe in borders and to regulate immigration? 617-266-6868. Dan in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call. This
My
is
pleasure.
Nurse Dan for the 9th Congressional District. Jeff, the first thing is Pope Francis is a communist. He also is the anti-John Paul II. If Francis was the Pope during the Soviet Union when Reagan was president, the Soviet bloc might still be in existence today. We know what the whole mass migration is about. It's about creating a permanent voter base to keep the left in power for multi-generations. And I think, Jeff, the simplest way to combat this is to amend our selective service laws and make it a requirement that every single person in the United States between the ages of 18 and 50 must register to serve in our U.S. military. I guarantee if you did that, you'd see a lot of these illegal migrants going across the border again.
Oh, that's interesting. In other words, have everybody do a year or 2 years in the military. And if that's the case, then many of these illegals would say, you know, I love America, but not that much.
You know, here's the thing about free rides and freebies. The one trade-off when you sell your soul for free rides and freebies, you sell out your freedom. And, you know, if they face the prospects of having to register to serve, I think a lot of these migrants are going to leave this country. They may go to another country, but they're going to leave this country. So we have to stay strong, and we have to keep up the fight. And I do believe in the sanity of human nature, and I think at the end of the day, we'll see the light of the.
I agree. Oh, Dan, I think this is unsustainable. And even here in Massachusetts now, look, for the Mass GOP, for Amy Carnevale, who's a rhino's rhino, who has spent practically her whole time as the chair of the Mass GOP, and you know, many of you Republicans know this better than I do, weeding out MAGA, rooting out Trump supporters, waging a political jihad and civil war against anybody who's a true Trump supporter. You know, when we had that big rally recently against Maura Healey and Sanctuary State and bringing in all these illegals and giving them all of these free, massive taxpayer-funded benefits, where was Amy Carnevale? I invited her to come. In fact, they did everything possible to sabotage the rally, to give it bad press, to undermine the rally. In fact, she tried to get me fired. Her and her media allies did everything possible to try to get me fired because I had the gall to expose the massive abuse of power and what was going on in this state regarding the open borders, the illegal immigrants coming in. So, you know, I don't believe her that she means anything what she says in this statement. But the fact of the matter is, even Amy Carnevale now is realizing, wow, yeah, we could actually start winning some elections. You know, we could actually start winning some races if we would just, make an issue of it. Fight for the voters for once. Stand up to the Democrats for once. So I agree with you, Dan. Look, this is the tip of the iceberg. You know, this $1 billion that they're hiding in secret, I think it's a lot more. And I guarantee you, a lot of Democrat activists and operatives are getting paid. A lot of Democrats are getting rich and fat over our money. Dan, thank you very much for that call. Because remember, all this is our taxpayer money. So, you know, they don't have money for roads and potholes and hospitals and schools and buses and bridges and police and firefighters. And I could go on and on. That there's no money for. But to keep housing, feeding, clothing these migrants, nothing but the best for an illegal. Then it's an unlimited spigot. Kathy in Rochester. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. And a perfect example of that is the town of Stoughton, where the migrant children want to get their $16 breakfast versus going to school to get their $3 crapola breakfast, like the American kids get. No, they want to get their nice, fancy breakfast because that's part of their $64 a day meal ticket. So, that screwed up the whole bus system in the town of Stoughton. So that's a perfect example. But, cheers to Nurse Dan. People need to really pay attention, and they all need to go vote this coming Tuesday in the primary and vote for people like Nurse Dan, like Jane Kuhner on the South Shore, but especially Bob Antonellis, who is a conservative, Trump-supporting candidate for the U.S. Senate. Do not vote for John Deaton. John Deaton is supported by Amy Carnevale. He is a rhino.
Kathy, can you hang on? I want to come back to you. I'm up against a hard break. Kathy says, and she's right, Tuesday is primary day in Massachusetts. It's also primary day in New Hampshire. I mean, across the country in many parts, but especially here in New England, here and in New Hampshire, vote. You need to vote. We got to have the right people running for office. 8:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. All right, let's go right back to Kathy in Rochester. Kathy, you were making the very important point that next Tuesday, just 4 or 5 days from today, September 3rd, is primary day here in Massachusetts. It's also primary day in New Hampshire. Kathy, I've got to ask you, how prominent do you think the issue of illegal immigration, the border invasion, the welfare benefits for all of these migrants, how prominent do you think it's going to play in the primaries, at least here in Massachusetts? Kathy?
I think for the people who know what's going on, it's going to be very important. But sadly, there are still some people who support the Democratic Party. But I have to tell you, where I live on the South Coast, I am seeing Trump signs everywhere. It is fabulous. A few idiots have Kamala Harris signs, but Trump signs are everywhere. So people are finally starting to catch on, but they don't realize the primary is very, very important. We have a lot of good conservative Republican candidates running. The most important is the Senate seat. To get rid of Hiawatha, we need to get rid of Hiawatha in the state. But people have got to go and vote in the primary, and they cannot vote for John Deaton. John Deaton is a rhino, and that's what's happened in the state. We keep voting in rhinos, and nothing changes. And
Kathy, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let's go to John in Westford. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
I heard a lot of people talk about like Sarkozy and what's his name, Saul Alinsky. Have you ever heard about Karl Popper?
Yes, the Open Society.
Yeah. Open Society, yeah, and that's a lot of had a huge influence on George Soros and a lot of these people that are pushing for the open borders. And it was kind of like the first work on globalism, and something that everybody should deep dive. It's really interesting. And as far as the Pope goes, I don't know if I have this correct, but when Jesus was asked about governance, didn't he say, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and that unto God which is God?
Yes, yeah, he did say that. He did.
To state before there was one.
Well, look, John, the way I think one of my friends texted me, and he's a really, real faithful listener and big fan of the show. And the point that he made to me in his text, this was off air, and I think it was a really good point. He said, look, we're not living in the 8th or 9th century anymore. This is not the Middle Ages where we had kings and kingdoms and, for the last 500-600 years, we have modern nation states. I mean, I'm stating, it's like saying the sky is blue, but his point is, look, we have nations. That's what we have. And a nation is based on borders, on a culture, and on a language. It's just common sense. Now, the globalists don't believe in that. They want to destroy that. And what they're going to give us is anarchy. It's going to be like the fall of the Roman Empire. That's what's going to happen. It's a form of international communism. That's, if you've noticed, they want to destroy every distinct culture in the world. See, France can no longer be France. It can't be French. England can no longer be English. Italy can no longer be Italian or whatever. I can just go around the world. Literally, they want to change every culture. America can no longer be American. So that's why they're pushing multiculturalism. And what at the heart of multiculturalism is all cultures are equal. And not only all cultures are equal, but every country should welcome. They're morally mandated, required to have people come into their country. Like, in other words, you can't decide who comes in or should they come in or not come in. No, you have to allow people from all over the world to come in and bring their culture with them and not assimilate, because their culture is just as good as our culture. And notice, John, the game that they play is this is only in Europe, only in North America, and only in Australia and New Zealand and the so-called first world. Notice, if you ever immigrate to Muslim countries, here, I have many people who listen to the show who say, Jeff, I spent a year in Saudi Arabia, because you can make good money in those countries, or their company sent them there for whatever reason. United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or better yet, the Saudis, the Qataris, they're putting a lot of money now into professional sports. Okay, not to get too much sidetracked here, but, you know, professional soccer, golf, like big time. I'm talking big money. And so they're drawing all of the best players from all over Europe, all over the world, all over North America. Ask the professional players who live in Saudi Arabia. Ask them in Qatar. Ask them in the United Arab Emirates. Ask them in Kuwait. Hey, tell me, can you walk around with a cross? Can you go around and say, excuse me, where's the church? I need a church. I need to pray. I'm sorry, I'm Jewish. Where's my synagogue? No, I'm sorry. I want to have the Star of David. No, I want to open up a Jewish restaurant. Or, you know, whatever it is. Or, you know, where I come from, we have strip clubs. No, that's our culture here. We have strip clubs. I want to open up a strip club. They go, no. You're in our country now. You live by Sharia law. This is Islamic law. Don't tell us that you guys have Saturdays and Sundays off. We don't have that here. Don't tell us you can walk around with your religious freedom and wear whatever you want around your neck. Not in Islam, baby. So, and they never force it on them. See, notice, and they don't force it on China. A lot of Westerners do business in China. No. Chinese culture, Chinese language, Chinese law, Chinese customs, Chinese tradition. No. Only here, John. Only in the West. Suddenly, see, you go to China, not all cultures are equal. They'll tell you to your face, we believe we're superior. In fact, the official position of the government in Beijing is that China is so culturally superior to the rest of the world. They call themselves the Middle Kingdom, like they're the middle of the earth, like the middle of the universe. And they go, we were a great empire that dominated the world for thousands of years. And our destiny is to dominate the world again. I mean, they're open, they're naked about it. Now, look, fine, whatever you believe or don't believe. What I'm saying is, John, their cultural chauvinism, their sense of civilizational superiority, they teach it in the schools. They tell you when you come in, you're making money here. You respect our ways. We don't respect your ways. And they let the whole world know, we will dominate the world. Our day is coming again. Now, my point just being, in China, not all cultures are equal. And the UN never pushes it. Klaus Schwab never pushes it. The globalists never push it. They never push it. You know, no one, even the Vatican, here, look it up. Pope Francis, to me, has embarrassed, humiliated. It is a disgrace how he has betrayed the Catholic Church in China. He's not fighting for the rights of Catholic priests and Catholic dissidents to speak and practice their faith. No. He surrenders to communist China. So my point is, they only do that to us. Why? It's the open society, to go back to your point. They're closed, we're open. They're protected, we have to be infiltrated. Because the goal is to ultimately bring us down. That's the ultimate goal. It has been from the beginning. How do we take down the West? And John, we are basically one election away, and we could lose the whole thing. Final word to you, John.
Yeah, to what you're saying, ask your kids what the melting pot is. They don't teach it anymore. It's just cultural diversity. Assimilation is not pushed.
And notice we're becoming more divided, more polarized, more balkanized than ever before. So whatever you may think of them, and I think the melting pot was ingenious, but whatever you think about the melting pot and assimilation, it worked. It worked. Who won the First World War? We did. Who won the Second World War? We did it. Who won the Cold War? We did. Who created the most advanced, greatest superpower in the history of the world? We did. Why? Because we were united. We spoke one language. We had one culture. We had our secure border. We were proud to be America and Americans because we said ultimately one people, one nation, one country under one God. And we were never stronger. Now, as we've abandoned assimilation in the melting pot, look at us. It is the disuniting of America. And my friends, trust me when I tell you this, that was the goal all along, to destroy us from within. 850 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. Tracy in Dover, thanks for holding, Tracy, and welcome.
Jeff, once again, agree with everything you're saying. I'd like to bring up the Pope and then the multiculturalism issue. With the Pope, my own priest and I have spoken. We all know he's a communist. Nobody's listening to the Pope, I hope, anyway. I know none of us are. True Catholics are not listening to him. I'd like to know the Pope's viewpoint on the Democrats' view on abortion, killing a baby up until the day they die. How about the fact that the Bible also mentions that we're not supposed to work on the Sabbath day, but we should be working at the other 5 or 6 days a week. And these migrants are coming in, and we are their slaves, Jeff. We are their slaves. We're the ones paying for everything for them. Having worked in healthcare before, when you open a chart on a patient, you see what their insurance is and you see what their job is, who employs them. I don't think the people of Massachusetts have any idea how many people are living off of us workers. Hundreds of thousands. So many people coming in just living off of us, claiming they can't work, and they're completely healthy because you can see their healthcare history in their chart. People coming over having anchor babies, everything paid for. And those babies come back, and they're from a Muslim country, and we have no idea what they're going to do out here, but they have the right to American citizenship. That's something we also have to work on. Multiculturalism is another thing. Let's talk about that, and I loved everything you had to say. With culture comes strength, comes pride, comes a type of, there's a power in banding together. And I think that's what they're trying to kill in us. I see that. American pride is they're working so hard to destroy it by bringing in people who aren't Americans, who aren't proud of this country, who don't care about this country. My family is Irish, and I see what they're doing to Ireland. Ireland is a disaster, but the Irish are trying to band together. There's some strong people over there like you that are banding together to try to end what they're trying to do to that beautiful culture. They're taking, in Ireland right now, there could be an area, a village, they would call it, of, say, 500 people, and they're bringing in 600 migrants. They're absolutely trying to destroy that culture, and we all know why. It's to ruin our strength, and we've got to fight against it. We've got to keep fighting against it. And all these other callers talking about the rhinos that are running. it's important that we bring in real Republicans, strong Republicans.
Tracy, I couldn't have said it better myself. Really dropped the mic. Tracy, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I just want to read, just to bounce off of Tracy's really, really excellent call. I want you to, the media never reports. Okay, the media was all over the Pope's statement. They quoted extensively. You never hear the other side. Because if you hear the other side, it's intellectual checkmate. I want you to listen now. Okay, I'm going to read this. This is from the Archbishop of Abuja, Nigeria. Nigerian Cardinal John, if I'm mangling his last name, I apologize, Onayekin. So this is Cardinal Onayekin, okay, from Nigeria. And he says he's completely against the Pope's statement. In fact, he's outraged. And he says what's happening is that you are now excusing the failed political leadership of these African countries. You're letting them off the hook by encouraging all of this migration. Quote, authorities should make Nigeria home, and the same should be applicable to other African countries. And this cardinal visited Italy. Okay, now remember, the Vatican is based in Italy, right, in Rome. Having visited Italy, listen now to this, and seen the number of Nigerian prostitutes on the streets of Rome and other cities in Italy as a result of mass migration, the cardinal, in an interview with the BBC, said he was, quote unquote, ashamed. Now, I didn't know the number was this high. 80% of the Nigerian women, and there's a lot of them, that have migrated that have flooded Italy, eventually become prostitutes. 80% are trafficked into prostitution. 1 out of every 2 prostitutes in all of Italy. Italy's a big country. I mean, it's 60 million plus people. 1 out of every 2 prostitutes is a Nigerian woman. Listen to him. Quote, to tell you bluntly, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed, he said to the BBC. I'm moving through the streets of Rome, Milan, Naples, and I see my daughters on the street on sale. I'm ashamed, and I stop, and I even greet some of them. You can't even engage them in conversation because they were brought out of the village illiterates. All they learn and all they know on the streets of Italy is what they need for this business, i.e. selling their bodies. I'm ashamed. Now, it goes on. By the way, I'm not kidding. Pope Francis keeps repeatedly praising multiculturalism. He says migrants, quote unquote, always bring riches. Well, I don't know. I guess the Nigerian women are just willing to do the prostitution, the jobs that the Italian women just won't do anymore. Now, this is a cardinal from Guinea. Okay? Robert Sarah. He was the former head of the Vatican's liturgical department. Now, he's come out blasting the Pope. Again, this is a very senior church official. Remember, the Africans are in uproar over this. Okay, the whole Catholic Church in Africa is like, these guys are crazy up there in Rome. The church should not be encouraging migration. Now, this is what he said, quote, it is wrong to use the word of God to promote migration. He says and he said, because using the Bible to encourage migration is a false interpretation. It is better to help people flourish in their culture than to encourage them to come to Europe. And he said that the church's push for migration into Europe, he says, is a scandal. Because he says that most migrants who wind up in Europe are on welfare. They're encouraged to be on welfare. And he says, so what happens is they are without work and frankly, or dignity. And they become and assume the condition of slaves. Is that what the church wants, he asked? Is this what the church wants? He says they should not be supporting this new form of slavery, and that is mass migration. And then he goes on to say that that the church has abandoned its commitment, according to him, to the people of Africa. Now, this is one of the top cardinals in all of Europe. He's the guy that I wanted to be the Pope after Pope Benedict. We couldn't get him, but I wanted him. He's a great man. The Nigerian Cardinal Francis Arenze. Now, he is now coming out blasting the Pope, saying that people are better off in their home countries. And here's what he said in a recent interview. He says that African countries, Latin American countries, and Asian countries are losing their young people to migration. They lose the very people who can best build their nation's future. And this is what he said explicitly. The countries in Europe and America can help best not, quote, not by encouraging the young people to come to Europe as if they looked on Europe as heaven, a place where money grows on trees, but to help the countries from which they come. And that's when he went on to say that only 4 out of 100 migrants that arrive in Italy, for example, are genuine refugees. The other 96 are essentially economic migrants looking for a better life. And he goes on to say, these are young middle-class males. And the reason why they're coming is not because they're fleeing a war or fleeing a natural disaster or fleeing some kind of persecution. No. In fact, they have to come to Europe. They got to pay as much as $10,000 for these traffickers to get their passage in. It's the same from Latin America here. Have you noticed? If they're so poor and destitute, where do they come up with the $8,000, the $10,000, the $12,000, the $15,000? Because many of them are professionals or middle class in their country. It's not equivalent to ours, I understand. But, you know, these aren't people fleeing a war zone. Now, this in particular is what's really striking. He says what they do, especially countries from sub-Saharan Africa, is that they come to Europe and then they say it's free. They call back. They call back to their home countries. They tell their friends and family members, quote, it's free. Everything is free. They make call after call to their friends saying, come to Italy, come to Germany, come to France, come to Britain. Everything is actually given to us for free. And so they go back home and they're like, are you serious? Like, are they that stupid? Yeah. Come on down. You never have to work a day in your life. Free apartment, free food, free health care, free clothes, free phones, free computers, $2,000 prepaid debit cards, free spending money. It's all freaking free. And so Africa is losing its best and brightest. Latin America is losing its best and brightest. Asia is losing its best and brightest. So it devastates the West. It devastates the home countries. It devastates everybody except the globalists. Their power goes up. Their control goes up. Their wealth and prosperity and money goes up. The whole thing's it's a scam. It's a scam. Thievery, to steal money, is a grave sin. And I'll never forget this lesson from my grandfather, who was a very devout Catholic man. To stay at home, if you're an able-bodied person, now if you're unemployed, that's a different story, obviously. But if there are jobs available and you're an able-bodied person, okay, I'm not saying you're disabled or you're maimed or you're crippled or, you know, whatever. And even then, I know a lot of people who are in wheelchairs or blind or what, and they work. They do everything they can to work to support themselves and be a productive member of society. But my point is, I'll never forget this. He says, if you're an able-bodied person and there are jobs and you're sitting around at home deliberately and all you do is take welfare benefits, you're a thief. It's thievery. It's thievery. You are taking money from hardworking, tax-paying people. You're like a squatter. It's like you go into their home and you sit around and you eat their food and you live under their roof rent-free and you raid their medicine cabinet and you take their clothes and you mooch off of them as you put your feet up and watch television all day or get stoned all day or whatever, play computer games all day. He goes, you're a thief. You're a thief. You're a parasite and you're a thief. And there's no greater sin than that. Now, tell me where I'm wrong. That's what these migrants, that's what they're encouraging, and that's what these migrants, most of them are doing. You come here and you steal. That's what this is. It's a form of stealing, of theft. You're living off of our money, our wealth, our taxes. So you don't work because you don't want to work. And so someone else is paying your meals. Someone else is paying your rent. Someone else is paying your food. Someone else is paying your clothing. Someone else is paying your education, your health care, your children's education, your children's health care. I'm sorry, man. You're a thief. You should be ashamed of yourself. It's a sin. The Pope has got this completely inverted. What's the difference between robbing a bank and robbing a taxpayer? There is none. There's none. So, to me, you want to talk about who's sinning and who's not. To me, it's an open and shut case. And I remember my grandfather always said this to me. You don't have the right to steal the fruits of someone else's labor. And when you pay taxes, it's to help the collective good. It's to help pay for the roads that we all use, the bridges. We all need hospitals. We all need schools. We all need police. We all need a military. And yes, my grandfather was a Catholic man. He goes, you take care of the poor, of course. The underprivileged, by the grace of God, there go I. But those are the genuine poor. Those that really can't help themselves. Or they temporarily need help. He was a big supporter of unemployment insurance. He was a farmer, and he tried to teach me that in urban areas in Europe, he said what really led to the crisis was when people begin to live in cities, they can't grow their own food. As they did, like he did on a farm. So he said, if they go out of work and there's mass unemployment, that's very destabilizing. So he always said to me that unemployment insurance was one of the few social programs he supported. In other words, to help someone until they can find another job. I agree with that. So we have a safety net, a basic social safety net, because, hey, I could be out on the streets, you could be out on the streets, we could be unemployed. I get it. So take a couple months, find a job, get back on your feet. That's how it's supposed to work. But to just come and say, no, rest of my life, year after year after year after year, I'm just going to sit there, an able-bodied person, and collect welfare checks. You're disgusting. You're a parasite. You're a leech. You're a thief. I swear to you, I respect the bank robber more. The bank robber's got to plan it. The bank robber's actually got to execute it. The bank robber is actually taking a chance because if he gets caught, he'll go to jail. It takes some chutzpah, some guts, some courage. I'm not defending bank robbing. What I'm just saying is, to me, they have even more honor than these parasites and leeches. It's out and out highway robbery. That's what these people are. They're thieves. They're like squatters. You come into my home. You live off of my wealth, my money, the fruits of my sweat and brow, the sweat off my brow, my labor, and that of my wonderful wife. And you eat for free? And you get everything free? I don't think so. I'm sorry. Not in my America. Not in my country. That's the problem. We used to have a sense of shame about this. I remember, I'm telling you, growing up, People say, look at that young man, 28 years old, doesn't do anything all day, collecting a welfare check. And I mean, they tell him to his face. Remember, get a job. I heard that all the time. Hey, come on, get a job. Get off your ass. Get a job. Do something with your life. Now, now you're intolerant. You have no compassion, no respect for diversity. Charles in West Springfield. Thanks for holding, Charles, and welcome.
I think what a lot of people don't understand, too, is that just because he says it doesn't automatically mean it's church teaching or you have to follow it.
That's right.
But I think
he's not speaking ex cathedra, as they say. So he's not invoking the infallibility of the Pope. It's just his opinion. You're right, Charles.
You will start to see bishops and priests, good ones, start to speak out. But as far as your question of the day, is he a communist? Well, the evidence is right there. What does a communist do to people who disagree with them or speak out against them? They silence them. Well, what has this Pope done to Bishop Vigano or Bishop Strickland? He silenced them. So I mean, you can see the communism that he's doing. Right there, their plot to destroy destroy Catholicism and to destroy what stands for right. You can see that it's working in this state. I've talked to priests, and they're sick of it. They said, Massachusetts used to lead the country and lead the continent in Catholicism. We're last now, So what they've been trying, it's been working. And I don't want to hear this either. I've heard this so many times, this argument that, Jesus always sat down with, tax collectors and these evil people. He would sit down and talk to them. Yeah, he'd sit down and talk to them. But what did Matthew do? He joined them. Well, did Obama join what, the church teaches? I don't think so. So he's not exactly doing, all this, exactly what, Jesus did or anything like that. I think that eventually you're going to see this, Jeff. There's going to be backlash that he can't handle, like always. He's done this before. And what does he always do? Comes back, I didn't mean it, Jeff. I didn't mean it. I was misunderstood. This is what I truly meant, Jeff. He's going to come out with a statement like that because everybody's against him on this. Guarantee you he's going to come out with a statement that says, well, I didn't mean it. This is what I meant. People just don't understand what I was trying to say.
Charles, I think you're right. I wouldn't bet against you on this because you're right. He's done this in the past many, many times. And then the blowback is so massive, he has to start walking it back. And Charles, you are right. The blowback on this, ay. I mean, he's really getting it now. And good. And look, Charles, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Everything you said is true. It's communism. But, paying people to not do anything is communism. Paying people not to work is communism. Paying people and guaranteeing, food, shelter, clothing, health care, everything free. That's the theory of communism. So this is all an experiment in international communism. And the last time I checked, Jesus wasn't Karl Marx. Jesus didn't go around and say, hey, don't work. Hey, you know what? No, someone's got to pay your meal for you, okay? Hey, what do you mean? No, you go live under someone else's roof. They're going to foot the bill. I'm sorry. The last thing Jesus was a socialist. That's the greatest heresy and the greatest lie of all. Charles, dynamite call. Don't be a stranger, my friend. Call again. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right. Pope Francis now interferes in the election. He says you oppose secure borders and illegals. You're a sinner. 919 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 917. Jeff. You can text us 70470. 70470. Jeff, we don't live, as your friend said, in the 9th century. We are a modern society, and we are a country. Each country has a border and a culture and a language. The Pope should be encouraging us to get along rather than encouraging an invasion. He should also be encouraging these third world peoples to educate themselves and to make their homes and countries places of peace, love, and prosperity. 917, I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, you nailed it. Instead of encouraging an invasion, which is what he's doing, and interfering in this election, he should instead be encouraging countries to get along and to say, let 1,000 flowers bloom. I mean, you'll notice all these leftists believe in diversity, except real diversity. Let France be France. Let Poland be Poland. Let Ireland be Ireland. Let Japan be Japan. Let Nigeria be Nigeria. And not only that, he should be encouraging these third world countries, as the African cardinals are screaming, no, stay in your home country. Help your country. Make your country become better and more peaceful and more prosperous and more wealthy and more free. So on every count, the Pope is wrong on this issue. There's no question. Okay, very, very quickly, this is, I got to get this off my chest because I think, this is from Caitlin on Messenger, and man, is she right. So all this money is going to the illegals here in Massachusetts. We now know billions and billions and billions of taxpayer dollars. And you know me and the roads. Okay, the roads in this state suck. Okay, let me just sum it up to you in one line. They suck. They suck. Here is Caitlin, and she's completely right, because I take I-93 all the time, every morning to work, every afternoon back from work. So I'm always on the 93. Jeff, has anyone driven on 93 both directions? 3 question marks. How about the annual repaving of State Highway 93? Because the rock salt following the winter snow breaks up the pavement, causing major potholes. Seriously, my whole adult life, every single year, when spring starts, the road gets graded and repaved. Anyone who commutes into town using that highway knows what I'm talking about. Yes. Yes. Now it's fall, and it's still dug up, and it still hasn't been repaved. The state obviously doesn't have the money for basic highway road repairs because it's all going to the illegals, Caitlin. You're 1,000% correct. Now, it used to be, they kept refilling the same potholes over and over again. Don't lose the job. Now, they don't even have the money for the hackorama anymore in this state. Now, the potholes just aren't getting filled. That's it. Blank you. 617-266-6868. One more. This is from Larry. And no truer words have been spoken. When I talked about multiculturalism. Jeff, when Muslims are the minority in any country, they're the victim class. But when they're in the majority, they're the overlords. Yep. That's always, every single time, with Islam and Muslim expansion and Muslim immigration. When they're in the minority, they're always persecuted and the victim. But once they become the majority, it's Sharia law all the way, baby. Jim in Boston. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi,
What's
Jim.
up, buddy? Hey, I was just talking, thinking like you said about the Pope. He needs to stay out of, our elections and, worry about what's going on in his own house. And with the immigration thing, I'm going to be real quick with you. With the immigration thing, we need to worry about our own people, especially our vets. It's always funny when the Democrats say they have no money, but then they have money for this, and our vets are on the street, and our homeless are on the streets. So the only way we're going to change it is by voting conservatives in and getting rid of these liberals. And one more thing, like they were saying, your past callers, Kathy and stuff, is that we have a primary next week. And I just want to throw out there that a friend of mine, Danny Kelly, is running for Congress. So we need some votes on the 3rd, and then he can run against Stephen Lynch for district.
Well, Jim, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Again, yes, it is primary day, Tuesday, September 3rd. All of you, please vote. Both here and in New Hampshire, vote, vote, vote. Steve in Sturbridge. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Yeah, I totally agree with you on this one. You forgot one thing. Remember how you mentioned about China? Look who he sent to China. He sent that McCarrick. You know the story about McCarrick.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in Boston knows McCarrick.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at what they did with the Chinese. He sends him. Archbishop Vigano should be on your show because he'd probably bring this all into thing. But another thing I'm mad about with him is, if that's the case, if he's blaming us, he's blaming us for. It's funny. This Pope blames us for global warming, everything else. But yet he invited the basketball players, and they all came in with private jets into Rome to sit down with him. It's funny. Well, those guys those are all multi-million-dollar guys. How come he didn't say to them that, hey, buck up and throw in some bucks to help everybody? He's going.
No, you're dead on. And by the way, the Pope, when he flies, he also flies a private jet. Hey, look, here's my advice to Pope Francis. With all due respect, take care of the pedophile priests, okay? Tend to your own garden. We'll handle our own elections here. 32 on the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. Okay, just to put a final exclamation point on this, huge story. It's local, it's national, about Massachusetts and $1 billion that we know of, completely shrouded in secrecy. All $1 billion that has been spent just on housing, emergency shelters, motels, hotels for illegal aliens, for all these so-called migrants. We don't know where the money has gone, who's getting a cut of it, which vendors are being used, how much they're being paid. Nothing. I'm talking a complete wall of silence. It is in complete darkness. Now we know that there's going to be at least another $2 billion, $1.8 billion to be spent over the next 2 years on housing for illegals. That's just housing. I'm not talking about the free food, the food stamps, the Visa debit cards, the $64 a day per illegal, all the other, free education, free healthcare, all of that. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning all this is because taxes are going up all across the state. All across the state. The taxes are going up. And as you know, we are commonly referred to as not Massachusetts, but Taxachusetts. To show you how bad the tax burden is in this state, I want you to listen now to the legend himself, former Patriots coach Bill Belichick. Now, I want you to understand, when he's making this comment about Taxachusetts, which, by the way, the moonbats in this state, how dare Bill say that? We're so upset. He stabbed us in the back. No, he's just telling you the truth. Even when the Patriots were at their apex, were at the top of their game, winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl, him, Tom Brady, I could go on and on, and we're the most recognized team in professional sports, they still had a hard time getting talented players to come. Why? Because of the taxes. And listen now to Belichick saying, I'm telling you, as a coach, I had a lot of really premier top-level players that I wanted to bring to New England, and I couldn't bring them. You know why? Because the taxes here are through the roof. Roll cut 15, Mike.
What's that millionaire's tax about, Coach?
Yeah,
They have
what's
New
that
England.
all about?
That's strictly New England or what?
What's
Oh, yeah, it's Massachusetts. Yeah. They take more on you. So virtually every player, even the practice squad, well, not, but even the minimum players are pretty close to $1 million. And so once you hit that $1 million threshold, then you pay more state tax in Massachusetts. So, yeah, just another thing you got to contend with in negotiations up there. It's not like Tennessee or, Florida or Nevada or some of these teams that have no state income tax. So you get hit pretty hard on that. With the agents, they'll come and sledgehammer you down about, extra tax they're paying.
Now, what did he say that was wrong? I mean, you would think he murdered somebody by the response of all these crazy liberals. And the Boston Globe and the idiots on Sports Talk Radio and, Bill's running the Patriots down. He's running our state down. No, he's not running anybody down. Taxes are much lower in Tennessee and in Florida and pretty much in the rest of the entire country. That's right. I want to also make that point. Many of you are calling in and you've messaged me. My apologies. I made a mistake. The Massachusetts primary is not September 3rd. That's in Massachusetts. It is September 10 in New Hampshire. So the New Hampshire primary is on September 10th. So not this coming Tuesday, the following coming Tuesday. So my apologies. By the way, just so that people know, Bill Belichick, one of my favorite Croatian Americans. People don't know that about him, but yes, he's families of Croatian descent. If you would see him on the sideline, he and his son, they do have the Patriots gear on and the Patriots jacket, always had a Croatian flag, small little Croatian flag on his left shoulder, just as a kind of, a little marketing for the ancestral homeland. Just a little, remembering his roots. But no, Bill's completely right. Like on so many things. And by the way, they made a big mistake pushing Bill Belichick out. I'm just going to say this right now. Okay? You watch this year. Okay? I said it was a mistake to push out Tom Brady. Okay? I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay? Now you watch. This coaching squad cannot shine Bill Belichick's shoes. I'm telling you this right now. Okay? But let that go. Let that go. We'll see this season. I know I'm right, but we'll find out. Now, my point is just this. You've got a millionaire's tax. You've got a sales tax. You've got one of the highest state income taxes. You've got the highest state property taxes. What are we getting for our money? The roads are horrible. They're closing down hospitals. Steward Medical Healthcare is fleeing Massachusetts. I could go on. Garbage pickup is nothing to rave about in this state. I'll tell you this right now. Social services are horrible. And where is most of the money going? It's going into pensions, public employee pensions. It's being stolen by the corrupt politicians up on Beacon Hill, graft, and it's going to the illegals and to the migrants. And I don't know if you know this, there was a recent huge economic study out. The third most expensive state to live in the entire country, Massachusetts. Number one is Hawaii. Number two is California. And we are nipping on their heels. Number three, Massachusetts. Now, I knew we were like top 10. I didn't know we were top 3. So to be considered middle class in Massachusetts, you have to have a combined family income $242,000 to be considered solidly middle class. $242,000, my friend. Blank you. California, $245,000. Hawaii, $260,000. New York State is very close. New Jersey is very close. Illinois is very close. These are all blue states. But we are number 3, and we're closing in on California. So everything is expensive. Everything is taxed to the hilt. And I'm going to ask all of you, for all the taxes that you pay, for all the taxes I pay, you think you get a nice return on your dollar? And now it's even chasing away talent, good talent, from the Patriots. Ed in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Ed, and welcome.
What I want to talk about is the firefighters convention in Boston. I'm retired Boston Fire. And they did, the guy that thinks he wants to be the vice president was there yesterday. And our guys clapped a little bit. But I know Vance is coming today to speak. And I know our guys are going to go nuts and they're going to clap like crazy. And this would make a good TV ad for President Trump because they could show the difference between the amount of interest towards the other people and our people. And anywhere we can get that to the Trump people to do an advertisement for that, because that's going to come out like crazy.
Ed, I love it. I love it. And Ed, I don't know if you heard what Tiananmen Tim, what Tim Waltz said yesterday. But he said that under Kamala Harris, because she's from California and apparently only California gets fires, Ed, and this may come as a shock to you, but according to Harris and Waltz, only California gets fires. No other state. We don't get fires here in Massachusetts. If you elect Kamala Harris, you're not going to have any fires. Just so that you know that. So if you go with Kamala and Tim, you guys, the boys are just going to be sitting at the firehouses, drinking coffee all day and weightlifting. Well, what say you, Ed? No more fires ever.
President Trump wanted to cut roads through the forest so they get the apparatus in there to put the fires out, and the crazy people didn't want him to do that. Is that true?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, look, it's the mismanagement, frankly, the stupidity of the misrule of the Democrats in this state. It's shocking. But again, the promise that he made yesterday that you're not going to have any more fires if you elect Kamala and me, because she comes from California and that's why she knows what firefighters need. And basically California gets all the fires. So since they get all the fires, Ed, you guys aren't going to get any more fires. I mean, this is the level of the mind that we're dealing with. And Ed, I please don't want you to think I'm making this up. Yesterday, she went to Georgia, Ed. She spoke to high school students. High school students. No one gave her the memo. High school students can't vote. They're too young. Trump's going to win, and he's going to win big. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my wonderful sister Jennifer, Jen as I call her, in Arizona. She lives in Tucson with her wonderful husband and my two nephews. She's very upset about the Pope. So first of all, she wants me to let all of you know, that she thinks the Pope should be excommunicated. That the cardinals, the bishops should get together and excommunicate the Pope, that he's abusing his position to advance a communist socialist agenda, and that's not what he should be doing as Pope, and she's completely right. But then she adds that in the healthcare, because she works in healthcare, that there are a lot of jobs that are advertised with big companies in healthcare, for example, United Health. And they have the exact same position in multiple states. The same job, this is what she just texted me, will offer $50K a year in Arizona, but $75K in California or Massachusetts. And she goes, Jeff, that's just a fact. And I'm telling you, $50K in Arizona still gets you further, I'm serious, than $75K in California or Massachusetts. So you're making $25,000 more. Let's not kid ourselves. You're making a third more than, say, someone living in Arizona. And with all the taxes and all the fees and everything costing so much more and the higher price of rents and housing and just the higher cost of living, you're still living less well than somebody making $50,000 a year, say, in Arizona. And if you try to explain this to the Moonbats, it's like talking to a wall. Jim in Walpole. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff Kuhner.
Hi, Jim.
First time caller, by the way. Thank you. It's not, thank you.
Welcome.
I wanted to thank you for everything you do every day. I've listened for years. I've met you in person a few times. I, too, went to Ohio University years ago, and I have to admit, I married up like you. I married a doctor named Grace, like I'm in the confessional, of course, right? So a couple of things with your subject matter. Immigration, illegal immigration is my number one pet peeve. I've knocked on thousands of doors. I'm running for Congress in the 8th District, by the way. Knocked on thousands of doors. It's the number one issue always, that along with inflation. And I just want to mention, we have no housing available in our state. Plus, the state is forcing the MBTA program down all these towns that have the transit that go to the area. They're blaming the people in the suburbs. Close the damn borders if you want to take care of some of the housing. Our schools are not prepared. Language specialists are needed. Nurses are needed. They have to be hired. Taxes are going to be raised. And our kids are affected by the learning process. Medical systems are overburdened. No one can get an appointment. The ERs are crowded, as you well know. Criminal justice system is strained to the max. We're spending money on interpreters, taxpayer-funded lawyers. It goes on and on. Now, these people are being taken care of before our seniors and our veterans, and everyone knows that that's wrong. The Pope, he's gracious and is wanting to open up the borders to all these illegals to come into different countries. But we've lost over 300,000 lives in this country from drug overdoses in the last 3 years under this current administration because the borders are wide open. Does the Pope care about Lincoln Riley or Rachel Moore? Has he made a phone call to one of their families to express his condolences to them? We have Maura Healey, Ed Markey, Liz Warren, Stephen Lynch, who I'm running against, all want these open borders. I say close the damn borders. So those are my comments. I know your time is short, but it's passionate, and I run into it every single day.
Jim, if I was living in your district, I would be voting for you. God bless you, Jim, and best of luck on Tuesday. 617-266-6868 is the number. Look, this is not my point. It's my sister's point. Okay, this is one of her, text rants to me. She was listening to the show. Is the Pope okay now with children being raped? Is the church okay now with our children and teenagers and Americans dying by the hundreds and hundreds of thousands from drug overdoses? Is the Pope okay now with Venezuelan gangs marauding and murdering people? So is murder, rape, drugs, is this now, that's kosher? That's all good now with the Vatican and the Pope? What does the Ten Commandments say about that? Because that's what you get when you have massive unlimited immigration and wide open borders. No, he's making a fool of himself. And you mark my words, he's going to walk this back because he's going to have to walk it back. Victoria in Boston. Thanks for holding, Victoria, and welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Victoria.
To speak up as you called for us and to push back on these Pope's comments. Where is the grave sin for abortion today, which is a modern-day Holocaust? And Mother Teresa has stated that the greatest destroyer of peace is the silent cry of the innocent unborn child. And for us to fight back and to speak up, we need to ask for forgiveness, as 2 Chronicles has said, to humble ourselves and to seek God's face, and that he will hear us and forgive us and heal our land. This is how we can best speak up and turn and ask for forgiveness for this grave sin, to dwell on that drama and that pain and those murders. As Pope Francis has said, that to dwell on those immigrants' pain. The Holocaust is not spoken about. The left platform is about the so-called freedoms of abortion and killing. And this is what I'm trying to appeal, this is a dire, crucial appeal that I'm making.
Well, Victoria, look, this, John Paul II, spoke out against abortion. And you're right. It is the genocide, the Holocaust of our time. And so did Pope Benedict. This Pope, not so much. Not so much, because he's got a different agenda. He's a Catholic in name only. He's an open borders globalist. Remember this. He's not pushing real Catholicism. He's the Red Pope. And we're going to expose him, we're going to unmask him, and eventually we're going to depose him. Bye-bye.